Good day. Welcome to the Prime Real Estate Network podcast. I'm your host, Ric Davis. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I invite you to do so at Prime Real Estate Ric. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in residential or commercial real estate anywhere in the great state of Texas, but especially here in our lovely city of Houston, please feel free to reach out to me directly on Instagram at Prime Real Estate Ric. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here this week, just like it is every week here in the noon hour on Thursdays. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for tuning in to this week's episode. As you can see, the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. LarryWBrooks, is away on assignment. We look forward to having him back next week for next week's most exciting episode of the podcast. But this week, I am really excited to introduce the guest to our audience. This lady is one of the most inspirational real estate investors, entrepreneurs, businesswomen anywhere in the great city of Houston. I just want to thank her publicly for carving some time out of her busy schedule, because we all know Thursdays in the world of business owners is the day that we get everything going. And on those great weekends, we can start our 3-day weekends off early. So I want to thank everybody in the studio, and especially our guest, for carving some time out of her schedule. I want to introduce her at this time. This week's guest is the owner and founder of Millionaire Mimosa, but also, most importantly, she's a proud supporter of the Buy the Block real estate investment movement. I want to thank her for showing up for us this week, and I want to introduce the Prime Real Estate Network audience to Ms. Tara Thomas. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I want to thank you so much for sitting in.
Thank you for having me.
It's just so much I want to get into, but with this being a real estate-centric podcast, I want to just give you an opportunity to talk about your real estate investment and your support of the Buy the Block movement, because so many members of our audience understand that the Sphere Podcast Studios, where we record the show, is just a part of that overall real estate investment that the Buy the Block movement is putting in place here in the Fifth Ward area here in Houston. So what was it about Chris Senegal's message? What was it about the Buy the Block movement that appealed to you as a real estate investor?
Well, Chris Senegal, before he came up with the concept Buy the Block, he was a friend of ours. And I was on a radio show. I was a host on a radio show, and he came through to introduce the Buy the Block project. And just listening to him and how young he is and everything that he's doing in the community, I just had to be a part of it. I had to be a part of it. And I had a little money that I needed to get it moving somehow. And he came through, discussed the project and what he was trying to do here in the Fifth Ward community. My roots are in the Fifth Ward community.
Absolutely.
And so keeping everybody here was the goal, and I just had to be a part of that. So.
And now that you've made that decision, move forward and become an integral member of that movement, how does it make you feel in your spirit to be able to invest in an area of town that you have such a connection to, but that you have seen has been neglected for so long, but you're part of the group that wants to revitalize and bring that area back to life? How does that make you feel?
Just to know that my mother grew up right down the street over here in the projects right here, and to watch this community from when she came out of this community just kind of go downhill. And so for him to come back and try to revitalize it, and he's doing just that because it's beautiful over here.
Absolutely.
That just meant everything to me. And this, like I said earlier, this is one of the most important, best investments I've ever made. This was a long-term investment, something that I never planned on even touching, I did this for my children.
Yes.
My goal is to create a legacy for my children. And so putting money down here and bringing the kids back here to see where my mother grew up and where my daddy ran the streets. And for them to see how the community is being revitalized, it meant the world to me.
Now, as an entrepreneur, business owner, and a mother, Could you just enlighten the members of our audience that might be sitting in that same seat that you were sitting in when you first met Chris Senegal? Could you give them an idea of how important it is to think about the future from a long-term real estate investment perspective? Because I'm sure like you mentioned, you had some money at the time, but I'm sure you've had money before then and after then, but may have been apprehensive as far as making that money work for you. Could you just give them some insight to kind of like alleviate any concerns that they may have had as far as real estate investment from that perspective?
Well, I wasn't taught as a child or coming up about investments. I didn't know anything about making investments or just having a cushion for yourself to fall back on. And so when Chris introduced this project, that was my opportunity to, hey, let me start building a bigger cushion for my kids.
Right.
And I don't want to cry because I cry easy, but my eyelashes. No,
I mean, I really appreciate the candor.
This was just, I needed my children. My mother passed. She didn't leave anything for us other than her life insurance policy. And we ran through that because, we never had that type of money before. Right. And I wanted my children to have something, just so whenever I close my eyes, they know, hey, my mom put this in place for us. This is something they don't have to touch.
And the reason I thank you so much for your
there's history in this area.
I love your transparency because as business owners and entrepreneurs, we put so much of our energy, time, and resources in building our companies,
right,
and building our brands, that sometimes it's hard to step back and take some of those proceeds and put them out there in a position where you're reinvesting in different projects or reinvesting back in your own business. So the fact that you're actually someone that was able to leverage not only your time, but also your resources and set up something that generationally can provide wealth and things for your children. I want to definitely applaud you for it publicly, because sometimes as business owners, we get so caught up in the day-to-day operation of our functioning business and or brand that you may lose focus and not necessarily have time or just not even necessarily be motivated to invest in that way. So I want to thank you so much.
Right.
But having you here as a guest, and as I did my research into Millionaire Mimosa, you as a businesswoman and a founder, as a real estate practitioner, entrepreneur, you always look for different ways to engage with the community. Different ways to interact with sales partners, business partners. And the best thing about Millionaire Mimosa is that you've taken your own unique twist on a drink that people have enjoyed for social occasions for decades. So just talk and introduce Millionaire Mimosa to our audience and let them know what is it about Millionaire Mimosa that they just have to try.
Okay, well, the Millionaire Mimosa came about because I was a part of one half of a radio show called Mimosas and Lattes. I was the mimosa because I like to get tipsy every now and then. And my best friend, she was the latte. So sitting at home during the pandemic, we couldn't go to the radio station because we were quarantined. And I was just sitting there trying to think of another way to get some supplemental income up in there. So I had a girlfriend who is a crafter. She's a local crafter here in the city. And I got with her and we got together, made a recipe, and we birthed the Millionaire Mimosa. So it is not the traditional mimosa, which is usually a champagne. To me, the cheapest champagne they find, and a bland orange juice. Right. I don't like the taste of the mimosa made that way. So I wanted to come up with my own recipe. And so I'm not going to tell y'all the recipe, but we partnered it with a sparkling rosé instead of champagne. And so it's all bottled up. So you don't have to blend it. You can add, some
whatever
vodka
you like,
here and there. You can add add to it, but you can just drink it out of the bottle. It's my baby. I'm so proud of it. And, I look forward to the Millionaire Mimosa growing. Mm-hmm. I look forward to the Millionaire brand expanding. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to stop at the mimosa. Mm-hmm. So just stay tuned.
So how has your mimosa been received in the public? Have you debuted it? Have you had your tastings? Have you done anything with any real estate companies? Because we would love to have you bring the Millionaire Mimosa over to Brooks and Davis Real Estate for tasting.
The Millionaire Mimosa it took off. I sold out of the Millionaire Mimosa before I even got bottles in my hand.
Oh, wow.
When I first, launched the brand. It's doing things that I didn't expect for it to do.
Right.
I've learned over time that your name holds weight. Mm-hmm. So people were buying it before I could even let anybody taste it. They were buying it. And the name itself spoke volumes. Mm-hmm. And my slogan, every sip gets you closer to being a millionaire. So, of course, you hear that slogan, you want to drink it. Like, okay, I'm going to be a millionaire. But the Millionaire Mimosa has taken off. Recently, we were the signature beverage for the Houston Grammys. This was last month, March. And so that was a big deal. So
how was that as an owner and a founder seeing? No, because I know when you create something from scratch,
yeah,
and you get it out of the mud to start seeing that the public is receptive,
yeah,
and you start seeing it take hold. How did that just make you feel as just a creator? I mean, on top of being an entrepreneur, businesswoman, but to a certain extent, you have to be almost artistic in a way,
right,
to birth these type of brain children and bring them to the market,
right. Sometimes in business, you have those seasons where birds are chirping, crickets. And it never fails. When I'm in that season, somebody comes calling. And so during that Grammy Award, that season, they called and asked for my brand to be, for me to bring my brand out for more exposure, of course, and to sponsor the red carpet. And that, I was like, wow, you don't know your name can be in rooms.
You have no idea about.
And for people to reach out to think about my brand, and like I said, I've built relationships here, and I've cultivated a lot of relationships here in the city, and I'm close. People want to see me win. Right. You don't know that sometimes, but people actually want to see me win. I've partnered with caterers. I actually have a couple of good friends who are realtors, and they give my bottle to every family that closes on the home. And they close quite often. Right. They close quite often. Shout out to my friends. Yeah. So, man, this bottle has, like I said, it has done things that I never thought it would do. And
let me know if you've had similar experiences, because I've had the pleasure of interviewing over 175 business owners and entrepreneurs over the life of the show. And big shout out to all the Prime Real Estate Network alumni out there. Thank you so much. And one of the common threads that I've heard in all of their stories, something that you mentioned, is that when you start a business venture, you never really have an idea of all the different doors that will open to you that you never expected. Have you experienced something similar to that? And what are some doors or opportunities that have been opened to you because of your mimosa that you would have never expected beforehand?
Oh, like I said, I have people that I've partnered with, like I said, caterers, funeral homes, that are putting my bottle in the limousines.
Oh, wow. And that's something from a marketing perspective that you may not have considered at the time.
Yeah, but, these families are going to the graveside a little tipsy on Tara, and that just, I'm like, wow. Oh, my goodness.
One of the things that's super cool, and I want to give you publicly, I think you have one of the more unique and creative IG handles.
Okay.
So
what's my IG handle? Getting tipsy. Getting tipsy with Tara.
Absolutely, tipsy with Tara. And I was just wondering that What has the online social media response been to you, your brand, the Mimosa? Because I could only assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that as a businesswoman and founder of your own beverage, online people could be like, oh, she must be the most fun person in the world, parties every weekend. So what type of response do you get on social media from that standpoint?
They think so, but I'm actually the exact opposite. So Getting Tipsy with Tara came, oh my God, years ago, because I would always get on social media and just call out tips on anything. You name it, relationships, kids, food, anything, just give tips. So that's how that name got birthed. It had nothing to do with alcohol. You assume it does. She's getting tipsy, but I'm actually not a huge drinker like that.
No,
I like to indulge sometimes, but that's where the name came from.
Right.
And so I was able to build on that name with that name. And so, of course, when I launched a beverage, people can really literally get tipsy with Tara.
No, and I want to thank you so much because that play on words is one of the unique parts of it. And when I first started researching you and your brand, I always thought that was a really cool IG handle. So I wanted to ask you about it. But that's a natural segue, and we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. But I want to talk to you when we come back about your life before entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And get a gauge on some of your experiences that have led to you being able to provide all of these helpful tips online, if you don't mind.
All right.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in.